Welcome to a Land Rover guide to the Land Cruiser. The cooling system on this 1HZ engine is impressive. From a reliability point of view, it's really impressive. The 300 TDI has some quite known about weaknesses, which I've done another video on. You can see that here. They've really made some good design decisions to make the cooling system work for them. As opposed to on the 300 TDI, it feels like it's been kind of shoehorned and bodged in. So radiator, this is quite a big radiator, which is no bad thing. It goes down under and it comes out at the bottom here, sticks out at the bottom. So it's quite a deep or quite a tall radiator and relatively narrow in here. The big win is that this coolant cap is higher than the cylinder head. This is the rocker cover here, so down the cylinder head is down here. This means this is where all the air goes because it's the top of the engine. On a 300 TDI you've got the coolant reservoir, which is lower than the highest point of the engine, which is the thermostat housing. The radiator is lower than that as well. It's just a bit of a weird design. Whereas this is the top. That's a typical kind of coolant cap. Really easy to fill. Just one point you have to fill from, really. The 300 TDI has got three places you've got to fill from. You've got the radiator cap, the thermostat housing, and then you've got the reservoir. Here you just fill in from one place and it all fills up. This cap works. I mean, there's no benefit for having a screw cap versus this. The way this works separately is that when it expands and gets too hot, it overflows down this pipe into this reservoir here, which is the overflow bottle, and when it's cold there's not much in there, so this pipe goes all the way to the bottom, and that's about how deep it is at the moment. We've got a few inches of liquid in the bottom, so it overflows out of there into this reservoir down here. Now when the engine cools and all the pressure shrinks and contracts, it then sucks up through this hose back into the cooling system. Now if this ever has too much coolant in it, it just comes up this pipe, or it gets to the top of the cap here, and this is an overflow and it just leaks out. So actually it's a self-regulating level. You can put as much coolant as you want in here and it will just always return to its happiest level for the environment and the temperature it's working at, which is brilliant. It's very fail-safe in that respect. It's a lot easier to engineer. It's a bit kind of awkward, they've got this pipe coming along and stuff, but it's a lot fewer, so we don't need to bleed it. It just bleeds itself up to here and then drains out when it needs and sucks it back in. The Land Rover's got the reservoir that's also the header tank / expansion bottle, and it's kind of a closed system that it will expand up within that and then take extra coolant from that and expand and contract within that. I think this is a bit more of a simpler system, and the fact that it self-regulates means you can't overfill it is amazing. And it's a cross-flow radiator, so the coolant goes down and across, meaning that all the coolant has to go across and down the radiator to get out, so that it's going to have the maximum opportunity to get cooled. 300 TDI, different than a 200 TDI. The inlet and the outlet of the radiator are on the same size, so it tries to feed it across and then back down, but it's got a bypass through here, so you can have coolant that goes through the radiator that doesn't cool itself. So this is generally a better design. Same with the outlet of the radiator. Down here, this pipe here, this big fat pipe, comes up here and connects to the solid portion there. And then this solid portion comes up and it goes in there, and that's where the thermostat is. Not quite so easy to replace the thermostat on this engine, but it's not that difficult either. You could get in there relatively easily. Take the air filter out of the way, it's quite good access to get there. What I like about this cooling system as well is that the hoses are very short. So the only hoses we've got that can burst is this one here. That's like the length of my hand, and then one at the bottom, probably a hand and a half's length. That's not very much. 300 TDI's got pipes coming up here, around, up back to the header tank, around here, and you've got a bypass that goes down the back, and it's really complicated. In terms of weak points, the hoses are a weak point. They can burst and degrade over time. This tries to keep the amount of hoses it's got to a minimum, which from a reliability point of view is brilliant. The heater hoses come here on the back They're really accessible, really easy. Come on the back here, up into the cab, back out the other side and down. So there is a bit of extra hose here, but it's not part of the core cooling system. The fan itself is a similar viscous fan, so it has the same ability to fail through wear and use over time. One thing I don't like is that it's held on essentially a spacer there between the pulley it's on and to get it close enough to the radiator. That doesn't seem like it. It seems like there's potential for problems with balancing the fan here, because that's quite a shaft, and any misalignment is going to get accentuated and it'll wobble. Doesn't seem to do that, but there's always got the potential for that. Those 4 bolts to get in there are a bit of a pain to get off because you've got 4, whereas the viscous fan on a 300 TDI, crack it, it's off. It's pretty straightforward. This one takes a while. Plus the fact if you take the fan off whilst the belt's still on, the pulley is only held on by those bolts, so the pulley tends to skew and wobble about a bit under the tension of the fan belt. It means putting it back on is a bit of a faff, so a win for the 300 TDI on that. The water pump is buried, it's in behind the timing belt. You've got to take the timing case cover off as well to get to it, and you've got to undo the camshaft pulley on here, but it's a bit more of a faff to replace on here, but it comes out of the block here. Got this pipe here. This is the equivalent, I guess, of the P gasket on the 300 TDI. The coolant goes into the block and goes into the block here and goes out through the water pump and back into the block, whereas on a 300 TDI it goes into the water pump and then through the timing case, which is where the P gasket is, and then into the block. So that's a typical failure point. This has got a lot less failure points because it's just a pipe into a cast bit of pipe there, which then bolts in, and then there's the water pump buried in, which hasn't got so many failure points, but it is plastic. Don't know how I feel about that. Maybe one better on the Land Rover, but Land Rover 300 TDI water pumps are not that known for reliability anyway, so maybe they're on par. But the Land Rover is easier to change the water pump. On the whole, for the cooling system, I like this a lot more. It's a lot more reliable, it's a lot more beefed up and ready to cope with the heat that the 6-cylinder engine will make, but it doesn't have the turbocharger, so the fact that it's not going to produce quite as much heat, and the fact that it's just laid out a lot better. Not everything on this engine is laid out amazingly well, but the cooling system is the one that is laid out very well, and that's probably one of the ones you do want a lot of attention and proper design put into, because it's in this environment, in the hot environments and the dust and dirt and the shaking around, and you're going to get problems with the cooling system. If the cooling system is made well, that is a big win. So well done Toyota on the cooling system on the 1HZ engine. Click here to go to the next video. Right here. That's where the button is. Right there.